We would like to start the program with invocation to God. May I request my colleague Kritika to please come over on the dais to present the invocation.
प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं गौरीपुत्रं विनायकं भक्तावासं स्मरे नित्यम् आयुष्कामार्थ सिद्धये। जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, पारु माडे भवद पाशा, पारु माडे भवद पाशा, प्रतिदिन बदुकिन आशा आशा। जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता। नीने जीवके आदिशक्तियु, नीने जीवके आदिशक्तियु, जनन मरण के निन्नय शक्ति, जननी पालिसे करुणिसु मुक्ति, जननी पालिसे करुणिसु मुक्ति, निनगे मुडिपु भक्ति भक्ति। जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता। परम पावने पापनाशिनी, परम पावने पापनाशिनी, करगळ जोडिपे पादयुग्मके, करुणा भरणी वरव पालिसे, करुणा भरणी वरव पालिसे, सर्वर सुखदी पोरेयौ पोरेयौ। जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, पारु माडे भवद पाशा, प्रतिदिन तोडकिन आशा आशा। जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता, जय जय हे जगदम्बे माता। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Kritika. A very warm welcome once again to all of you here. And it's also a warm welcome to all the online delegates. We have almost, Devendra must be giving me a count, almost 200 plus online delegates who have joined us on this curtain raiser event. And we have people physically present here. It's once again, after a couple of years, good to see a crowd and speak in front of the crowd about the events and talk about the deliberations of this LTC 2022. LTC 2022 is, if you go to history of LTC today, we began LTC as National Koha Conclave in 2016. And then we held this Koha Conclave in Bangalore individually. In 2017, we decided that, okay, we should have a partner, and then we should not only discuss about Koha, but other related library technologies. So when the thought of discussing on various related library technologies came up, we renamed this National Koha Conclave to Library Technology Conclave and held the first Library Technology Conclave, as it is called so, in 2017 in collaboration with Tata Consultancy Services in Pune. And then we started having partners. Every year we started conducting the event jointly in association with one of our partners. We had Goa University as one of our partners, then Cochin University of Science and Technology as our partner. And then in 2020, we missed the Library Technology Conclave due to the pandemic. And in 2021, we had this conclave as an totally online conclave, where we had three partners: NIAS, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, and CSR Fourth Paradigm Institute in Bangalore. The three partners jointly, along with informatics, organized the LTC 2021. And in 2022, we have the privilege of jointly organizing the event along with Somaya Vidya Vihar University, Mumbai. We thank the university for joining us on this platform for LTC 2022. And we welcome the university as our partner to host LTC 2022. The curtain raiser event, which is this event today, is actually a prelude to LTC 2022. This event sets the tone for what are the kind of deliberations we are going to witness in the Library Technology Conclave in March this year, the actual conclave, which is going to be held in Mumbai, SVU, Mumbai, as a hybrid event. Like we have today, we'll be having a event where we'll have physical attendance. We'll also have an online attendance. People have the choice to choose a physical attendance as well as an online attendance. This curtain raiser will set the tone for what is going to be witnessed, discussed, deliberated during the Library Technology Conclave. We'll also see which side the deliberations are moving around, what all we're going to discuss, and we'll also discuss on this platform how and what more topics we need to include in our Library Technology Conclave 2022 in the actual event. The Library Technology curtain raiser to the Library Technology Conclave is now that we are witnessing today will be attended by people who have registered themselves for the conclave as well as for the curtain raiser event. This curtain raiser event will have today two lectures given by two celebrated technologists who are expert in their field. The first lecture will be on open science data availability by networking to researchers. This lecture will be delivered by Professor DEBABRATA Das, the Director of International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. We have the pleasure of having Professor DEBABRATA Das with us, who is the Director of IIITB. He completed his PhD in IIT Kharagpur, and he has been associated with IIT Kharagpur as a part of the Sanyal School of Telecommunications. And then he was also jointly working with Kirana Networks at New Jersey. He has 185 papers and also has 3 patents credited to him, and there are 12 more patents that are under review. It's a pleasure to have Professor Das with us. May I welcome Professor Das with a floral bouquet. May I request my colleague to present a floral bouquet to Professor Das. Welcome, sir, and thank you for joining us in these times of pandemic. The second lecture on this curtain raiser event will be delivered online. This will be delivered by Dr. Josh Nicholson, who is the CEO of Cite.ai. The topic of the second lecture is a citation model beyond Garfield's vision of citation index. It's actually a pleasure to have Dr. Josh Nicholson here online. It's early morning for him. I think it should be around 5:30 early morning for him in East Coast, USA. Dr. Josh is a PhD on cell biology from Virginia Tech and has to his credit two major startups, Vinover, which was acquired in 2016, and Autria, which was acquired by Atypon in 2018. And both these companies aim to establish how scientists publish and collaborate. And Dr. Josh currently is the CEO of Cite.ai, which is a deep learning platform that evaluates the reliability of scientific claims by citations using artificial intelligence. I welcome Dr. Josh to this platform and on this curtain raiser lecture. Unfortunately, I cannot present you a floral bouquet, Dr. Josh. I promise once I meet you, I'll present you a small floral bouquet while we meet you in US next time. After these two lectures, we will also have the launch of the Cite database in India by one of the distinguished personalities sitting here. And to preside over this curtain raiser lecture, we have the privilege to have with us Professor Rajshekharan Pillai, the Vice Chancellor of Somaya Vidya Vihar University, Mumbai. Welcome, Professor Pillai. Professor Pillai needs no introduction to the academic community as a vice chairman and chairman, former vice chairman and chairman of the University Grants Commission, former vice chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, MGU, Kottayam, and QSAT. As per for his credentials are concerned, it's not only the academic community that he has been associated with, he has been associated with non-academic community too. He has been the director on board of Apollo Group of Hospitals, and he has also been president of the Delhi NCR-based civil society organization, Human Development Foundation 2015. We welcome Professor Pillai to this event and also thank him for partnering with us for LTC 2022. Joining us on this occasion, we also have the program chair of LTC 2022. I welcome Dr. Shalini Ers to this event. I welcome Dr. Shalini and thank you for putting all the efforts in making a program which would be much sought after and looked after. It's also my pleasure to welcome Professor Vaidande, the organizing secretary of LTC 2022 to this event. May I request Shailaja to present a floral bouquet to Professor Vaidande. Welcome, sir, and thank you for associating with LTC 2022. Needless to say, I need to welcome all those participants who have joined us here on this event, dignitaries, veterans in the library professions who have guided us and have also joined us here further to guide us on what should be the future course in library technology in the coming days. Thank you very much for joining us on this event. Before I take leave for the next session, I would also like to remind all of you that please ensure that you maintain social distancing and also keep your face covered with mask so that we avoid any kind of danger to us and our colleagues. Thank you very much. And I now request all the dignitaries to please come on the dais for lighting the lamp. Thank you, dignitaries. We now begin to the next session. May I invite Mr. Satyanarayana on the dais to speak a few words on informatics. So.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good evening, friends. People here in this conference hall and friends online. I welcome you all for coming in online and physically to challenge the COVID. More important, particularly my friends who are all assembled here in this room. In fact, when I was speaking to Professor Pillai, who is presiding over the function today, we were thinking of possibly cancelling the program as Omicron hit third wave in India was galloping. And when I spoke to him, while he wanted to know the situation, he also said, oh, it's really getting too frustrating not to really meet people, not to talk to them personally, missing that physical warmth. The second support to encourage us to have this physically also came from our chief guest of the day, who is delivering the curtain raiser lecture, Professor DEBABRATA Das, who readily accepted. He said, no, I will come. These two encouragements from two senior citizens like me was most encouraging for me, friends, to have this program today as both physical and online. I'm sure when we have our main event in March in Mumbai at Somaya Vidya Vihar University campus, in partnership with our host partner, Somaya Vidya Vihar University, I'm sure by then we will have more people joining us to challenge the COVID and take it as a new normal to keep going ahead. While we continue to challenge, it's also very, very important for us to make sure that we fight with the virus, which has no life by itself, but acquires all the life when it gets into our body. We make sure that we fight by taking all precautions and stay safe by following all the COVID compliant norms. Once again, I thank you all for joining us here and as well as joining us online. I guess there are about 180 people joining online today. I welcome you all again, and most importantly, I welcome Professor Das and Professor Pillai and Professor Shalini Aras, who is the program chair, and Professor Hindura Vaidande, who is our organizing secretary of the conclave. And all my friends here, my good old friends, I see Rajendra Kumar and Dr. Asundi, Koganurumad, Bandi and others. So it's really nice for us to celebrate that we are successful today after 2 years in surviving and sustaining and going ahead. Friends, my colleague Sanjay already spoke to you about LTC 2022 and a bit of its history. I will not touch upon that, except saying and thanking our host partner, Somaya Vijayavihar University and group of institutions. And I'm happy that Professor Pillai is with us here to preside over this function. And in fact, Professor Pillai, when we invited him for the valedictory function of LTC 2021, he reminded me that when we hosted in Cochin, he is happy to host the next event. And that encouragement was good enough for us to have Mumbai and Somaya Vijayavihar as our partners. A famous institute, an institution which has a long history, started by a personality known for freedom movement in those. To speak about informatics, which is what I'm supposed to, the company which we founded 40 plus years ago in 1980. It's always a pleasure for me to speak about the company of which I have been a part of from the beginning. But I'm not always the right person to talk about my company, because if I start talking about my company, I will start narrating a lot of stories in the glory of the company, to remember the glory of the company. So let me spare you from all the stories by simply presenting about 2 minutes of multimedia about the company, which of course traces largely the current ones. And I request my colleague Devendra to present this. There's no volume.
This pioneering vision is a global company today with products and services benefiting millions of users in the academic, research, and corporate segments around the world. India Today magazine described the venture as the first online information company in India for global knowledge access. Serving global information companies on a project for supplying consolidated Indian business information helped Informatics to ideate its first digital information product named India Business Insight, IBI. Credited with the enviable reputation as the pioneers in the online and CD-ROM-based information business in India, Informatics started creating new digital information products through 1990s. NeuroMed on CD, a product initiative funded by NIMHANS Bangalore, was the earliest e-journal archive in India for Indian medical journals. Driven by the internet advantage, Informatics developed its first global information product named JGate. JGate is truly the world's largest database for journal literature by its coverage of over 50,000 journals. The journey has continued with a diverse portfolio of products and services evolving across 4 business units: information products, digital library solutions, enterprise content management and publishing. The product family of Informatics is a growing list with innovation driven by the latest in technology and evolving market needs. In an industry where content is the king and technology is the master, Informatics has been a proud pioneer and leading player. Gaining 40 years of insightful experience by 2020, Informatics continues to be driven by values with a passion to deliver excellence.
Starting in 1980, we have passed through 40 years of our journey, seeing many ups and downs. And in some way, our journey is also a journey of the whole information industry in many respects. As what we call the information industry perhaps started in those early period of 70s and 80s. We focused largely on academic and research information, although initially we did focus quite a bit on business information and export information. We have many stories about it. And we had many products and services in these 40 years, many retired, many new coming in. And in fact, my salespeople always tell me that while I talk a lot about the story of informatics, I don't talk about our own products often and ask customers to buy it. I should mention one product at least, which we launched last year, which is not in this presentation. During the COVID period, we developed one product in-house for remote access for all the people, the students and the faculty who are not able to visit their institutions and their libraries so that they can access from home or wherever they are, which we launched last year, which has been pretty successful. And talking about the products, we have seen many products in the past, information products, and we are going to see many more future products too. And for me, when I look at the products, every company has only one product. Of late, I believe every company has two products. For long, I believed that every company has only one product. And now I believe that every company has two products. One product is the customer himself. And as a company, it becomes the responsibility for us to deliver what he wants in the domain we operate. We have successfully been doing it and continue to do it. And the second product in some way I would say is we have an internal customer. Every company has an internal customer. That's our own staff. So with serving these two customers who themselves become the product for us, our journey continues. We are happy that we have sustained 4 decades and also the COVID period. I'm sure with the rich knowledge, expertise, and the team we have built in, the company will sustain longer with new partnerships, many more new partnerships. And this conclave also marks the beginning of a new partnership with Site.ai, where Site is going to launch. We are going to launch Site in India. Dr. Josh Nicholson is going to talk about it as we launch this product. This product is already integrated with our JGate, which just now you saw about. While JGate acts as a global and local discovery, particularly as a local discovery for what all the institutions have within themselves and supporting what they get from outside. Integration of our product with Josh's product, Site.ai, helps us to bring in a new value of citation dynamics, citation metrics, research productivity metrics, which we are extremely happy about. So once again, I welcome you all on behalf of informatics, on behalf of Somaya Vidya Vihar Group of Institutions, and on my own personal behalf. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again.
Dr. Bandi, Dr. Kurulmat, Asundi sir, Director, Ex-Director of Public Libraries, Karnataka, Kumbar sir. Then the online expert, Professor Nicholson, and online all the participants, and then physical all participants. We welcome all for this Library and Technology Conclave 2022, which will be held on the March 3 to 5 in the Mumbai. We all welcome you all for this this curtain raiser program. Just I wanted to just introduce about a few minutes. I will not take much time on this. Just I wanted to mention about that Somaya Vidya Vihar University, which is the last 6 decades of rich experience in building and managing educational institution of great repute. Somaya Vidya Vihar, located in the Vidya Vihar campus, Mumbai, has become the private university in 2019, bringing all its self-financing higher education institutions and self-financing programs together, from undergraduate to postgraduate level. And this university was enacted by the government of Maharashtra state legislature and approved by the UGC. It's a comprehensive multi-faculty university with the faculty, institutions, centers of management, engineering, science and technology, dharma studies, commerce and business, humanities and social science, engineering, language, literature, journalism, mass communication, and library and information science, etc. We do have more than 27 PG departments, and then plus 100 plus the PhD guides in the university. I have been joined as a professor emeritus of library and information science and the university librarian. We have started developing our library, and just about this celebration of the LTC2022, I just wanted to mention about the accommodation also. In the campus, we are able to accommodate more than 130 participants, and keeping in mind this pandemic situation, our campus itself is a very, all the facilities we are having, the venue which we have booked for the auditorium for the function, and then accommodation is it's near. And also those who wanted to come for the and stay in the around the hotels, we can provide the details of the hotels, Ghatkopar and the Chembur and all around. There are good hotels available. So on this occasion only, I just wanted to welcome you all, and I invite you all of you in the this is March 3 to 5 March 2022 at the this one Somaya Vidya Vihar University campus. Thank you very much, and I welcome all the participants also online, and then I invite online and then the physical participant to join to this LTC and have the grand success of this function. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vaidande, for giving more details about the LTC event. And thank you, Satya, for giving an introduction to informatics to all the audience here. Now we have heard about the joint organizers of LTC 2022, but let us also hear about the conclave. What does LTC 2022 have in store for all of you during this curtain raiser lecture, as well as the actual conclave? May I request Professor Shalini Ers to please tell about the conclave.
Namaskara. Good evening to all participants here, dignitaries and participants here in person, as well as those who are online. I'm supposed to be giving you a glimpse of what is in store for all of us at the LTC 2022. Before I get to LTC 2022, I would start with LTC itself, that is Library Technology Conclave. Both for the LIS professionals as well as for non-LIS professionals who are participating here, I would like to, some of them might be wondering, what is this Library Technology Conclave, or what is the connection between our alliance between the libraries and technologies? Library and technologies are natural allies because both are engines of the mind. Satya mentioned about stories. Let me start with some two stories about this natural alliance or the great alliance between libraries and technologies, particularly the computer and communication technologies. Well, if I talk about the Hollerith cards, perhaps it gives you an idea of how old I am, because most of the modern computer science graduates also, unless they have paid attention to the history of computers, would not know about or understand or recognize the Hollerith cards. The Hollerith card is the first kind of a storage device which was used with the early computers. Why I'm mentioning Hollerith card is the Hollerith card has a close connection to libraries or the library card. The invention of the Hollerith card itself owes itself to the library card. Why? Because Hollerith, who developed this for the US Census, was actually guided by John Shaw Billings, who was the founder and librarian of Surgeon General Hospital, which is now the National Library of Medicine, who told him, who was familiar with the library card, saying that this is one way of storing information in a card format so that it can be easily manipulated. That is one story about the connection or the close alliance between technologies, particularly computer technologies, and the libraries. The second story that I'm going to tell you about the close alliance, again, it is also related to, in general, with computers as well as particularly IBM. All of you would have heard of James Watson. This is circa 1930s. The World War II was looming large. IBM had built 6 computers. Those days they were building in only numbers, few computers, 6 business processing machines. And then the depression and because of the war, it hit. And then he was not able to sell any one of them. So naturally, he was so worried about his company, the IBM. And then his wife asked him to join for an evening dinner party. He was in no mood because he thinks that some old ladies would be there in the dinner party and he would be seated next to some old lady. It so happened that he was seated to one old lady, and that old lady started interacting with him and asked him, what do you do, what your company does, etc. And then he says, my company produces this business processing machines. What do? They do this data processing, etc. He explained. Then she said, I will buy 3 of them. He couldn't believe his ears. And you know who that lady was? She was the librarian of New York Public Library. So that's the story of IBM, resurrecting itself during the time. These 2 stories give you an idea of the close alliance between libraries and technologies, how technologies have helped libraries. And also I would say libraries have also helped technology. And I would end the story of this alliance with Google itself, which is kind of, the god of our times, so to speak. I suppose many of you know that Google itself is a byproduct of the digital library projects. That was one of the digital library projects, one of the 6 digital library projects that were given to Stanford. And Larry Page and Sergey Brin were working as PhD graduate students for this digital library project. And that's how they came up with the idea of, they were part of the group working on the idea of indexing the web pages. And that is the story of Google. So what I'm trying to say here is there is a close alliance between libraries and technologies, and LTC, the series, actually takes that alliance forward and tries to focus on the current issues in this alliance of libraries and technology. So LTC 2022 is focused on primarily research data management and stewardship as a building block for open science. Open science is considered as equivalent to good science. What is good science? The 2 cornerstones, I would say, rather than going to all the other of any good science, is rigor and reproducibility. Particularly the reproducibility aspect of good science is taken care of by open science through the research data management. The focus of research data management is primarily transparency and reproducibility of any research through making the data open, accessible, and reusable. And that is the theme of LTC 2022. In a way, this theme, some of you who have been part of the LTC 2021 are aware of the fact that it was focused on e-science. So in a way, it's an extension of e-science, because e-science is open science, and open science, the core, I would say, component or a building block of open science is research data management and stewardship, because research data is so critical for not only the advancement of science, but also the advancement of society itself. That's why we are looking, that's why UNESCO and many organizations are actually focused on open science, including research data management. As many of you are aware, recently, that is November 2021, the UNESCO has ratified the open science principles. So soon it's going to become part of all the member countries, including India. So open science is going to be part of our, the guidelines are very clear, and then that is part of our, I would say, scientific enterprise or scientific republic or science republic. So it's time for LIS profession also to get into this and make the rightful claim for their position in this open science ecosystem. Because studies have indicated that whereas many countries have already taken the initiative to be part of this open science ecosystem by contributing to the development of research data management, we in India are lagging behind. We are talking about it, but as far as my own study of 2 months back shows that even the top libraries are not doing much, or probably doing nothing towards the research data management in their own libraries, are supporting the research data management of their own organization. So it is in this context, I would say, that LTC 2022, which focuses on RDM and open science, is perhaps very topical. And one of the reasons as program chair that I and Satya discussed on this theme and then chose this theme was perhaps it's time for the LIS community to get into the act of understanding and participating in the research data management in the context of open science. Now, LTC 2022 specifically, I'm very happy to be part of this LTC 2022, primarily because the two organizations that are part of this LTC 2022, Informatics and Swayam Vidya Vihar, are the two gentlemen behind them, are known to me since the last more than 2-3 decades. So I'm very happy to be associated with these organizations which are organizing this, and particularly the curtain raiser, which also has Professor DEBABRATA Das, who's with IIITB, which is again an organization, an institution with which I've been associated with for more than 2 decades, partners in many organizations, partners in many crimes, maybe. So we have been part of many of these organizations. So it gives me immense pleasure to be part of the LTC 2022 team and to give you a little more technical glimpse about LTC 2022. LTC 2022 will start, that is the main event I'm talking about, will start on March 3rd and 4th and 5th. So March 3rd will have 2 workshops. We are putting together the program. In fact, due to the Omicron and other details, we are not yet able to actually stabilize many of the speakers who are actually on our tentative list who have agreed. But at least one workshop that many of them are either going to be, we are trying to make the event both from the point of view of not only the attendees or the participants, but also from the point of view of speakers, a hybrid one. So we wanted about 50 people to be on site or in person to be able to deliver workshops and talks. So one of the workshops, which is on RDM basics to begin with, would be delivered by Professor Kevin Croston of Syracuse University, who has worked in this field. So I'll just give you a glimpse of 1 or 2 events which are already I would say, frozen in one sense, of course, given the pandemic, because everybody talked about the pandemic and how we can beat the pandemic. Let me add my own bit to that. I would rather say, I count my blessing that we are standing here today after 2 years of pandemic too. So it's time for us to not only count our blessings, but to have the courage. And of course, as everybody said, that take the caution and the precaution to beat the pandemic. So we begin with 2 workshops, and then that is on March 3rd, and then we have an inaugural on March 3rd evening, and March 5th and 6th, sorry, March 4th and 5th are the conclave events. And the conclave has 6 technical sessions relating to the theme. And then these technical sections will cover the entire gamut of both open science as well as research data management. We have lined up many speakers for these events. And another thing that I wanted to highlight, which many of you might be familiar with, is the format of the LTC. LTC is a conclave which has only invited speakers and panel discussions. So each session will have one keynote speaker followed by a panel discussion with 3 panelists and then 1 anchor. That is the format of LTC 2022. Each of these sessions, the idea is, as I said, it should be a forum for both beginners as well as people who are working in that field. So this format, we believe, will give a chance for both beginners to understand what is there for, let us say, in open science, what is there for RDM, etc., but also gives a chance for people who are working in this field to understand what are the latest advancements, whether it is technology, tools, etc., of RDM, that is research data management. So we are going to have these 6 sessions, and I would also like to mention another final session of the LTC, that is the 2 awards. As you are familiar with, informatics has had since the last couple of years, one award called the Informatics Innovation Award. And this year, we have added one more award called the Informatics Research Award. So whereas the Informatics Innovation Award is for the libraries who have innovated, as I said, not necessarily only with reference to technology, but also with reference to processes and services, etc., to highlight their innovations through submissions to this award. So I invite each one of you here and also those online to consider your library and your innovation to get that award and submit your submissions to this award. And the second award is for the LIS Research Award, which is introduced this year. This award is for LIS researchers, and this award will be based on research publications, both quantity and quality. Quality will be measured as usual with, of course, we are launching the site also through impact factor and various other methods for publications from the year 2000 to 2019. That is the period of coverage of the publications for consideration for the LIS Researcher Award. And of course, I must also mention that this award is one other criteria is the age criteria. It is meant for people below 50 years. So with these announcements about the awards, as well as some glimpse of what is in store for all of us at the LTC 2022, I once again invite you all to join us for the main event of LTC 2022 and then strengthen this movement of Library and Technology Alliance and take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shalini, about identifying and highlighting the key aspects of the conclave and introducing to the audience the details about the conclave. May I now request Professor DEBABRATA Das to present the curtain raiser lecture of LTC 2022.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Professor Salinias and Mr. Satyanarayana for inviting me for such a wonderful conference, which is Library and Technology Conclave 2022 Cotton Razor. And it is really, I'm humbled and honored because without a library, knowledge cannot go from one brain to the another brain in this present world, because previously in our ancient Indian Shruti, the Shruti was the memory was the library, brain to brain, direct transmission. Like brain, now people call machine to machine communication. Previously it was brain to brain communication, but now brain to library, library to another brain. So library is the center of everything now. It's so, but that library has a different forms, which I'll be talking about, and how our researchers and all. And I also want to thank, and it was a really honor to see our one of great evolution, Professor Rajshekaran Pillai, who has been here, and he's a great man by himself and contributed huge in the different academic scenarios. And also I heard to the about CEO, Mr. Sanjay Grover, who has been in informatics, for his warm welcome. Thank you for that. And it is wonderful to hear also this Professor Hindurao Mankare, who is also here from the university, and also the rich knowledge of the library science with him. And in this note, I also want to welcome whoever we here in this audience, physically present, and also those who are on the online on this library LTC 2022 fundraiser. However, it is as Professor Salinia said, that library science and technology has a huge connections. I don't have to, but I agree with him more than 100%. I can say 110 or 20% more. But this technology has changed the world's multiple things, our business to lifestyle to everything. And I jokingly said, my friends, in my student friends in my class, that who is the knows how important oxygen is. So, but we know but second most important thing in our life is that how these devices like these mobiles and laptops are being connected to the networks or the internet of the knowledge. That is mean knowledge. Every moment, if you are opening screens, that means they're reading something, listening something. So everything is going to the brain, because if you read or listen to brain, so that is the called. Students miss breakfast, but they don't miss connection to the internet. 5 seconds, if the internet connection goes in the hostel, they immediately send messages about their phone, sir, why internet is not working. But if you don't give them breakfast, they don't never complain. Okay, so this is the new generation with whom we are dealing with, and this library, the knowledge which we are connected by the technology is the most important thing in nowadays. So having said that, let me say that thanks for giving me the opportunity, that what is research world going to play needs the library in their life. So why worry about the research, the reproducibility? The research reproducibility is one of the very important for you, that why we need that, and the necessary ensuring for the credibility of the results, and also the conclusion derived from those results in a research study. So reproducibility research, if I can do, then my time, my confidence levels also increases, because this is the thing I can produce quickly, which has been already being delivered. Unable to validate latest results in the field, no clear state of art. So how can we meaningfully extend the boundaries of human knowledge? We do not know where the boundaries, that is state of art. For this, our all researchers, when I started my research, the first thing was taught to me by my professors: don't come to me, go to the library, find out the state of art, where the world is. And then you can know where is the boundary is reached. Then you find out the practical problems and which is not being solved, or which will be useful for the society or the citizen. You start pushing that boundary to the next level of research. Having said that, our life started, actually we born in our second life after our birth. The second life started in the knowledge is inside the library, practically, years after years, months after months. with the notebooks. Nowadays, people go and very, very happy and surprised. Previously, we used to write. Nowadays, people don't write anymore. Very rare. Small kids in the schools also don't write. If you give a presentation, Professor Rao is of our generation. Now, somebody younger generation would have taken a snap photograph from his mobile, period. They'll not have taken. So look at how technology has changed our day-to-day life. So that lowers the barriers of the entry of new researchers, making the research more accessible. So this technology has made us the boundaries more accessible. So now what reproducibility, why I need it. What is the required to reproduce in research results from my paper? It's very interesting to see the main findings, that is the algorithms or machine learning models and all, simulation setup and the software dependency, parameters, values, etc. can be found any of these papers. If you read any paper, any areas, I'm just taking the reference of little bit of more mixture of computer science and electronics and all, that the main findings of these are the simulations, how I made the simulation setup, our software dependencies, what software I use, tools, and all. But very rarely you will find a paper which will give you simulation code or data used to produce the results. No one gives, very rare. Nowadays, in the research world, very recently, they have made it compulsory if you want to produce in a top journals, in particularly I can say in our areas, computer science, that you have to give your data set, what you have used, what simulation codes you have used. You have to keep it in some public domain, then the other people can refer and download. But 20 years back or 10 years back, it was not that. Very, very rare. Only in the paper, the green part, what you see now, that was there, but this was not there. So how you will reproduce then? If I do not have the codes, I do not have the data, which library is supposed to have to make the research faster and faster, it's not there. So as a library science, now time has arrived with the help of these journals and conferences to collect along with the papers and the original data they have used and the simulation code they have used. So these are the challenges. So now if you look at, in fact, you so nicely, Professor Shalini explained what is LTC 2022's vision. So if you look at the open access to the research paper, which is only thing which is available, only thing is available with us, the open access, the leftmost one, the open access, that is the thing available. But if I look forward to take my world faster and better, the open data for the simulation or the experiments, which is not yet available, but it can be done, which she was pointing out, the research data management, the area which is a huge, how to do that. That is the focus will be open data for the simulation and experiments, which I explained in my previous slide. So this research data management, RDM, can solve that problem, for the open science. And reproducibility of the research by including the open simulation codes are not available. It's not there. Code no one gives. So if you look at the open science as a taxonomy, this only the left part is available, the right two parts are not available. And we need to think of how we will get that. So research data management, how to organize those things, store, preserve, share all research data associated with the research projects. It is hundreds and thousands, or I can say tens of thousands of research going on in different directions. I have been in Science and Engineering Research Board of the Government of India in DST, which is the largest funding board in science and engineering. And I can see how many projects every year. As a committee member, we are the funding agencies committee. I'm heading a couple of verticals as a chairman of that committee. So I can see so much money we are pumping in the research. People are producing papers, but they are not giving to the common man, other people, their data and the codes in the public domain. So if they started giving it, there are a lot of challenges because of multiple issues like patent, intellectual property rights, where to store so many data, how to sensitize those data, that they're authentic data or not. So those issues are going to come in, these issues. So having said the, so these are some research projects may generate the data as a result, other use collected data from produce the results. Both kinds of data are important. So if the RDM is a data sufficient by itself, then we may need metadata. That means data about the data also. That means these results, what you see, how I get it, that metadata will explain to me. A researcher will able to understand from the metadata that how this data has been generated. So consider a research project that use a publicly available and data sets for all the machine learning model. The data sets alone is not sufficient to expose the results. We may need metadata to exact source of the data sets and what pre-processing and perform the data is synthetic data was used, how the data was produced. Let me explain to you what is synthetic data. Today morning, I was giving a talk on this, and IIITB International CompsNets, that is one of the Asia's or India's #1 networking and communication systems. So that was the topic was that artificial intelligence and machine learning is enough to solve the problem of networking and communications. So it is just started, to be honest with you. You are speaking so much AI, ML, DL and all, but we have just started in that long path according to my understanding. So why this is just started? Because if you know machine learning says that machine will learn for a certain amount of time. From whom? From the existing data. Then the logics of the algorithm will take the decision. And who will be keeping, whether I have a data or not, we don't have very systematic data. We have very randomization of the data. And libraries will be the depositories of those data. So then there is a lot of debate that if the data is not available, scientific world is telling I will develop and give it to the world synthetic data. Synthetic data. That means I will presume something is going to happen, and I will generate synthetic data which will be fed to the machine learning machines or something like that. So having said that, about those synthetic data, it is not so easy to generate. That we need experts in that areas. Okay, so for that, can you go back to the slides, please? So having so this is about this synthetic data I am talking about, which is being mentioned in your these slides. Can you write? Okay, what computational environment was used to the model on the data? So this is also important. AI of this is more can be introduced in simple read files on. So these are the things that by what is data itself, what is called metadata, what is called synthetic data, all will be there in the library science. So where can an author start? So upload preprints up to the open data like archives. So, and where you can upload your informations. What about the data with the metadata and the simulations codes? And GitLabs is a good place that can help you for the versions control too. This GitHub is nothing but in whole computer science world, software developers and all, these are all belongs to the open source, and they go to the all kind these things. And try to avoid putting them on your current personal website. The data and the code should be openly and permanently available. So readers should become aware where your data and codes are, and brief note of your paper and provide a link to the references. Why I am saying all those things? Because we have worked long way in the library science. Mr. Satyanarayan and the team who are sitting at here, they are experts in the library, evolution of the library they have seen. But he's the man, and the other people here, Professor Shalini and all, they have seen the marriage of the physical library to the digital world. And in the digital world now, the time has arrived where these two parts there. One is books, one is called literature, research literatures. And these research literatures are going to move in these directions. Books, of course, books is nothing but amalgamations. Each chapter is amalgamations of various research papers in a very lucid language, which a common man can understand. But if you deep dive into any book, they are nothing but the root is some research papers. So from research papers to the book, or the research paper to another research paper, needs these data, because we cannot move without this state of art or understanding the data and all to produce it. So these kind of things will make easy for us to make faster and faster growth in research, because we are spending a lot of time. If you ask a researcher, he spends out of our 4 years PhD to our 5 years PhD, complete around 2 years goes out of that to finding out the data and the simulation codes which he's writing. I'm just making an average year-wise things. So one possible, last slide, this is mine, but this is next slide is my last. One possible consideration for the future research data management. So one we can think of that this is the proposal which we thought of in our labs, research labs, that what should be our next things. So if you look at the left one, typical research flow, this blue one you can see, and the green one is the proposed one for RDM, research data management. So if you look at typical research, formulate the research problem. First thing we do in the research, go to the library, read papers, find out how much is done, attend so many courseworks after the learning the fundamentals concepts from the courseworks and the reading papers from the library. Then we formulate a problem, first one. It takes any researcher close to 1.5 to 2 years if he's doing by himself without any help. It's not easy, because first problem takes a lot of time. Second, third problem doesn't take so much time because you are fallen into a direction or kind of thing. So then the review papers published in the last few years in the relevant venues, that is means to many papers you read and you reviews and find out that. This doesn't take so much time. But the third one in this blue one, third one from the top, if no one has solved this problem before, developed new tools to solve it, it is a time consuming process. Here is the main thing which I wanted to show you. The red one, last but one from the bottom of the blue side, the time consuming part is if somebody has come out with a completely new problem, like if you are talking about 5G now, in the 5G, there will be beams from the base station. From the base station, a beam will come and fall on your phones. That was not there technologically before. And as you move, the beam will track you in direction moving. So I need a simulation tools to do that, which is may not be. Now it is available, but it was not available 2 years back, 3 years back, 4 years. So 50, 60 or 100 engineers sit down, scientists and all, develop that tool. Look at the time consuming. So this spectrum kind of the beam coming on, falling on a mobile, this is a very niche area, complex problem, but people have solved this mathematical model and problem tools in finance and economics. Means if my finance moves in the world according to the supply and demand. So mathematical model has been done in the finance, for an example, in economics, but not in communication. But people don't know because the communication people never read the economics papers or economics tools of research. And neither the economics people read the communication technologies papers or the tools, mathematical tools. So if our library science, RDM, can tell, looking at a communication technology problem, hey, this tool is already developed and it is available in economics, that I save 2 years time, 3 years time. So that is that green part is the proposal, how the future will move. The future will move means, can research of data management help us to these steps, that reduce these steps? That means if the third one here can be reduced with respect to time, that means current focus on RDM is data generated and collected during that time of the research projects, the first one, and the focus can be the data be used, tools used to do research project, from which project, which tool is used, and what is the concept of that tool and model of that tool, and that can be quickly retrieved irrespective of any area. I can pick up from different area and I can use in my problems. Then this whole libraries science or library technology or will be great help to the whole research world, which is being done manually nowadays or by knowledge transfer by somebody else. So this is the things by collective knowledge for faster progress that I called it in the lab, that this is the collective knowledge of different areas, different models, different research models, different tools available. And if I am working in one area, of course, PhD or the research is done in one area, but I don't know another 99 areas or hundreds of areas, but my problem, it is similar to some other models and the other areas, how quickly I can come to know. So this is the thing which I want to say, that with this LTC 2022 will be a great and successful event in March. And I know the professor is here from the Somaiya University, and informatics is also a great supporter of this cause. And I'm sure all the participants and all the dignitaries across the globe and across the India will be definitely beneficial, because the library is the depository of course, library, you know what is meaning of the physical library and digital library both, and it is evolving and as madam said, the Google is one kind of search engine, but that Google doesn't tell me that this research has models are available where and what matches, because it is a mostly area specific. It doesn't make across areas research and all kind of things, interdisciplinary kind of things, which is the need of the hours. So with this, I stop at here. Again, thanking all of you, giving me an opportunity and inviting me to give this talk for the LTC 2022. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grover.
Any questions from the audience?
Professor, it's very interesting that you gave in your last slide about not just the present, because we are still in the present and talking about the future, whether the future of RDM is where, you actually indicate the mathematical, that is abstraction of the data, not just the data itself, but the mathematical formula behind that. Can you throw some more lights on what you expect out of that?
So there are any research majorly have three parts. First is the literature survey, followed by the problem definition. It takes a lot of time. Then second part is mainly which I am talking about, that how to solve that problem. A problem definition itself is a good amount of time, thought process, but second part also takes the good amount of time to solve that problem. The third part is the writing, how to write that other person can understand without my presence. If you read any research paper, the author is not in front of us, but we try to understand any book or anything. So I am not talking about the first one. I'm not talking about the last one. I'm talking about the middle one, which you are asked for. So when we have to solve the problem, so the problem are already defined. So idea is also there, how to solve. Say I found out an idea. So for a simple example, say I want, like Google Map, everybody use it. So Google Map means I want to go from here to some destination. They find out a shortest path to reach the destination. So this is called a shortest path algorithm, like Dijkstra's algorithm, which you know very well. So but if I find out that this gentleman got Turing Award for this Dijkstra, for all kind of these inventions, look at the computer science, one of these highest awards. But if this is being solved for thousands of years in the biology, the biologists, some of these animals or the ants finds out the shortest path in their migration. from one place to the other for thousands of kilometers. They fly or they walk and all. If you look at the African migration, so if there is some study done in that world, and if I can search it and find out that, hey, this solves my problem. Okay, so then the researchers saves time. I just give you the example because both the examples we know. So similarly, there are some advanced problem which I gave you, that spectrum, that if I know that this is my spectrum from the base station and it is going to, say, Mr. Satyanarayana's mobile phone, he's sitting at here and he's talking and he started moving, and how that antenna will move towards him, and minute antenna, and if the antenna cannot move, it hands off to another antenna. So is there anywhere this kind of problem solved? Like our supply chain, if I have gone to that building, what I am demanding, it's not available, efficiently transferred to here, very efficient. These examples are known to us, so I'm giving. But if you look at it, looks so simple, but it mathematically modeling and solving that problem, and why it is a complex problem, this handoff will happen within a 1 millisecond. 1 millisecond is too a small time. A few milliseconds, sorry, few milliseconds. It's not a second. Second means hello. I said in 1 second. 1,000 times less than hello I said is 1 millisecond, which you know, but it has to be done within 100 milliseconds. But just hey, that's all. Means done. So he will not able to know transparent. So, but when the engineers or the scientists are working on that level of accuracy and that level of quality of service, and if I take years to solve that problem, but when that solution is available in another area which is not known to me. So how the library science or can find out the ways these interdisciplinary problems can be solved, even though I don't know that area. Because every interdisciplinary I cannot learn, very difficult. But solutions are there. Like biology example I gave with the shortest path, or spectrum I gave it with the supply chain, which is operational research. This is communication. So how I will come to know, and they're very efficient, very much optimized. One areas for hundreds of years of research, like chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology, there are 100+ years of research. Computer science is only 30-40 years or 50-60 years. So half of the age or less than that. But computer science is used in the technology everywhere. So how can we learn? So these kind of things are a lot of problems. The researchers are facing this problem. They are spending a lot of time. So I'm just thinking, imagining that can we do, it's not easy finding out exactly. So today I was talking in the morning is that there is a very interesting problem, Professor, I'll tell you, which will be the success for the AI ML. Without that AI ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning will not be successful so easily. For an example, is that, please stop me. How much time I have, I don't know. Please stop me, because we professors have a very bad habit. Once started speaking, they go on speaking. So okay.
We are all teachers.
Okay, we are teachers. So now I'll be explaining you. See, you see, if you go and ask any software engineer, Bangalore is full of 6 lakhs software engineer, 10 lakhs, more than that. How they work in the company. If you give them a problem, they will go and search it is available in the open source or not. They will just download, tweak it, and according to the manager has said, then they give, I have done my work, I'm going home. Fine. But after that, they will find out a lot of bugs, problems and all. Not a single software without bugs is very, very rare. So that means people are too much of dependent on these depositories like GitHub or open source, Google's and all. Even the product companies, and bugs are there. Now think of, we are all talking about AI, ML and all, where we will be one day going to those depositories, pick up a machine learning tool and use it for something else. And there will be people who will be putting bugs into that, where they will hack the system. And you will not come to know. It will give random results, and what we are telling, future machine will take decisions, and machine will take decision with these bugs and malfunctioning tools. then in certain amount of time, people who have spent billions of dollars to develop those ML may not be used. Or you cannot use the AI ML in the critical application. Uncritical you will be using because you know bugs are there. So there is a huge area of research will come out in future in AI ML, explainability. Explainability means how can because those algorithms are very complex, not complex and huge algorithms. And I check it straight like a black box and put it into my problem. And I give input, output, telling that it will give results rightly for a certain amount of time. After a certain time, it will start malfunctioning according to the bugs there. So how come a engineer will come to know scientists that why it is functioning right and why it is not functioning right? So that whole algorithm which is developed by somebody, it has to be explained correctly. That is called explainability, huge area of research now. So these kind of explainability available for so many hundreds and thousands of codes or tools has to come in the library, and it has to be stored there. Then student can pick up and use for their use. So these kind of directions slowly our digital science or digital library science will be struggling to bring into their library for the researchers, next generation researchers.
I just want to add to that, one area which probably leads to what you are expecting would be the ontology development, which leads to cognitive maps, which perhaps answers your question. Somewhere something is developed and then it is linked.
Okay.
So it's an expansion of the RDM in one sense. Exactly. That's called the resource description format. There are many such, you know, in fact, W3F has developed, W3C has developed that ontology maps and things like that, which is still, as you said, it's a huge challenge. So it's still in the very early stages of development, ontologies for this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor, for asking this question.
Yeah. So the artificial intelligence in the library is now in future. What is the role that it will come in the library for the helping researchers and other things?
Yes. Why? Because the researcher will come to the library and tell that this is my areas of interest of research. Then now we have a Google search to tell them these are your papers. But papers, then what is the research problem that you have to find out by yourself? Then even the Google can say these are the open research problems. But solution to it, new ideas to it, moment if it is new ideas are not available, because then you are not a researcher. Then when you give the new idea, then how to prove that your idea is right? That part I was talking about, that mathematical model, simulation tools, that from where I will get, then I can prove that my new idea is solvable fast, because now that is not there.
One final question.
Sir, we are talking about one-way open access, open data, research data. For the last 30 years, we have talked about digital libraries. During these 2 pandemic years, it has proved where we have failed. Many of we are facing problem in the digital access, in the technology, access, and viability. Is it now, say, for example, R value, we are talking about R value in the pandemic. Third wave, that has failed in the proving sense. What is the solution, or is it any concrete solution for that?
Thank you very much. It is a billion-dollar question or $1 million question across the globe, how to control pandemic. You see, you have 2 parts of the question actually. One part is technology, one part is pandemic. So let me divide that clearly, because what I understood from your question, please correct me if I have not understood your question, but let me come to the pandemic part. The pandemic part, there is a huge biology part is there. So let us not mix up that biology with the technology. Biology part means the virus structures, virus birth, virus generation, virus propagations, virus vaccinations, and all kind of things, how the virus died, which Mr. Satyanarayana was telling in his starting remarks. wonderfully. So that part, I am not entering into that. But the research, do a faster research in the biology world, then I need technology. You'll be really, I mean, you know that, I'm not saying you'll be, all these things, what you say, that technology has helped a country like India, which is a developing country, not yet developed like what Western country says to us, much better way than any other Western countries with respect to the vaccinations, all kind of things. Let us be proud of us, what our own scientists and engineers have done with those applications, which is developed within 1 week. And look at our population, and look at the East-West, like from Nagaland to this size. We are not small countries like Israel, where they are much smaller. So look at the massive things has been. So technology has successfully trying to do his job. Now your first part of your question, the accessibility to those technologies. You will be really happy to know. I'm not saying in favor of anyone. Very low GDP when we get independence, and 72 years, I'm giving credit to everyone, 72 years, whoever it may be, our engineers, scientists, administrators, and all the people have brought us to a state. I can tell you that computer networks, the optical networks is there in the Gram Panchayat. India, and after that, what we call those. You go to the village's home after home asking about your health. Huh? Yeah, this has so 10,000 tablets given free to them with an application. All mothers and children are connected by the state, which medicinal treatment, food. I'm just giving an example. So information now started to the people. It will take another 10 years. Please let me be optimistic. Where we were 72 years back, where we have reached, we should be proud of, and where we are going. Another 10 years, information will be skilled, will be knowing more information than we. Yeah. And these libraries will be depository of knowledge. There are depository of knowledge only two places on this earth. One is brain, one is library. Library has both. Every home has a library. I'm not saying library of your university or not. Every home has a library, every school has a library, every college has a library, university has a library. Two places. Knowledge has nowhere else. Either in the brain of, I'm not saying only human. Any ecosystem have a brain, logics. So please don't
information has already reached to the many people. Looking at my country's size, it reached to West. Within 10 years, I am very hopeful everybody. And on an optimistic note, if you go to any village, I was in a last week in one of the remotest place of Karnataka, Chikmagalur, in the deepest jungle. And I went to the hilltop, I could talk. I can see what's up also there. When full of tigers around. So if communication has just data may be very slow, that will be changed over the time. And Indian scientists have solved this problem. I don't have to go abroad.
Mr. Das, a quick question. I keep hearing from all the software engineers that nobody can develop a software which has no bug.
No bug.
No bug. And now I'm not able to understand that argument because the software is given by logic. If I give my logic correctly, right? If that is correctly coded, implemented, it has to be software. Now, is it really impossible to develop a bug-free software? Will we be able to reach a day where people can deliver software companies can deliver bug-free software?
Bug-free software. Giving answer to your question, yes, because that is our ultimate goal: make a bug-free software. I'll give you a classic example, which we have seen recently. Boeing 737 Max and Boeing's. So these are the critical mission systems, aeroplanes or health, where the people and the world tries their best to not to have a bug on their software or hardware. And the two crashes ultimately landed up to them find out the bug in the software. But before the Max version of that Boeing, there was a multiple Boeings where it was not visible. Or not visible means it is never reported or happened. That means that all the flights took off properly, landed, except these two things. So that means, I'm just telling you then, I'm not saying that that doesn't have a bug. That means it is doable at present conditions. Why it is not happening? What is the problem? And other kind of things. That is the question. So a human being, as human, always wants a bug free. But the time, the pressure, the complexity of the systems, understanding that, and somebody has to take the huge understanding of huge big software where millions of lines are there. There is not a single person who understands everything. They want bits and pieces. There is the problem. When one group has developed this, one group has developed, when they pick it up and integrate it, if one mistake is there in some groups or some individual persons like memory declarations or the logic and all kind of things, somewhere it will get affected. So the problem is somewhere else. So that has to be solved. People are working on that. Let me tell you, it's not that people have given up hope. No, absolutely not. And working on that, and I'm sure time will come. So, classic example. This is the only time where the vaccine came up within a month, few months. Look at smallpox. Chickenpox. How many years give the vaccine? So many trials went on. After that, people reached to a point. HIV. So these are the things which takes time to mature, to develop that kind of understanding, because the systems are complex and it is changing over time. That is another problem. Today I use a version 11 or 12 of a particular mobile. Next day, I have 6 months down the line, another version where 30% is a new innovation inside. And again comes apart. So time versus software versus medium, the complexity, that optimization has to be done. Good question, really. That's true, but it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Das, for your
Interesting, quite informative, interactive session.
Without wasting more of a time, let's move to the next event. The next event is the launch of Cite.ai. I would request Professor Pillai to do the honors of the launch.
What is cite? Often in research, we see metrics conveying how many times a paper or an author was cited. But a count of how many times a paper or an author was cited leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't really indicate how something was cited. Even if something was used as a reference 500 times, were its claims supported in each of those instances? Or did newer research indicate disagreement from their findings? How did others interpret the study and what they say about it? Cite transforms citations from a superficial number into a conversation through smart citations. To create smart citations, take a text of research articles and extract the sentences from them where they make a reference to another paper. Our system classifies each of these statements as being supporting, mentioning, or contrasting the relevant cited claims. The end result is a vast network of what different research publications say about each other and their findings. You can more efficiently build up a quantitative and qualitative understanding of how any individual or any group of research papers has been cited by the broader literature. Cite has various features that build around this network of conversations to help researchers, consultants, policymakers, students, and more better understand and evaluate research, as well as enable them to make evidence-based decisions directly from the literature.
Thank you, Professor Pillai, for launching the Cite. The Cite database is now available in India through informatics. Anybody requesting for a trial or a proposal, we would be glad to set up a trial and submit a proposal for Cite to evaluate the Cite database. Now let's move to the next session. A citation model beyond Garfield's vision of citation index. Dr. Josh Nicholson, who is online with us, would speak on this second curtain raiser lecture. Dr. Josh Nicholson.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Great. So thanks for the opportunity to give this talk, and thanks for everyone for attending virtually and in person. It's actually funny because I met Satya about 3 years ago at a library conference here in the US. So I'm calling in from New York City, where we've had our first snow and the sun is now rising. So it's quite early, but quite beautiful and serene outside. As mentioned, my name is Josh. I have a PhD in cell biology, which I finished about 6 years ago from Virginia Tech. The idea behind Cite, which I'll discuss in the next couple of slides, really borrows from my experience as a researcher. And it pairs very well with the talk that we just heard, discussing reproducibility and better understanding the literature, whether that's COVID-19 or the latest computer science advance. So I put my email address here, josh@cite.ai, and our Twitter handle as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. after the talk or at any point, or tweet at us, and I'd be happy to hear them, as well as happy to hear feedback. And so once again, thanks everyone for taking the time on your Friday evening to listen to what I have to say. And so I like to start this talk, very similar to what Professor Das just said, by talking about how amazing research is, right? It's given us the ability to have this virtual hybrid conference where I can call in from New York into India. It's given us life-saving vaccines, now on the order of months, powerful telescopes, powerful computers within our pockets or on our desks. These were all made possible ultimately by scientific research. And I think that's something quite remarkable that libraries do very well, is that they make this available. They help researchers and the public to better understand this information. And this is something we should all be proud of. At the same time, there are challenges, right? There are massive amount of papers being published every minute. There's about 4 papers being published per minute now, if you include all articles, millions of papers per year. And then if you look at certain disciplines, there are challenges of reproducibility. Is this science right? Can I trust it? Can I build on top of it? Can I influence how I do my own research or how I even raise my children? And these are challenges that we seek to address, right? How do we help people better discover, evaluate, and understand research? And how do we help them ensure that it's right? And that's really at the heart of why we've built Cite. And so about 10 years ago now at this point, a few studies really made an impact on me. And these studies come from large pharmaceutical companies, Amgen and Bayer. And what these studies looked at was major cancer studies or major biomedical studies to see how reproducible they are, right? As a pharma that has billions of dollars, can I spend this money, validate these claims made in the scientific literature from the best labs in the best journals? Can I validate them in-house? Are they strong enough to be reproduced? And what these papers found was quite shocking. They found that most, or in the Amgen case, 89% of the 53 major cancer studies, and these are the world's best cancer studies, could not be validated. Bayer found similar numbers looking at different diseases as well. And so this got a lot of attention, including attention from me in this challenge of how do we know what is reproducible or what is not, and how do we reward this as well. And that's really why we created Cite. And so we built Cite to make research more reliable, to make research more understandable, and to make it really introduce the next generation of citations. And I think our goal has broadened a bit, right? We are really focused on reproducibility to where we're now looking at, how can we utilize this information that is extremely valuable in a better way. And so this is Cite, and I would encourage everyone to indeed get in touch with us if you have any questions or want to try it out. You can also simply sign up without any credit card and explore it for free for a week. It's quite fun to look at, any topic that you might want to see what the literature says about. And so I like to show Cite by showing the world as it exists without Cite, and then to show it through the lens of Cite. And so here is a typical article that you may come upon. It's published by an Elsevier journal, Brain Research. It was published in 2012. Maybe you'll discover this on Science Direct. When you first look at an article, you generally look at a few things. Where is it published? Do I know this journal? Do I trust this journal? Similarly with the authors, do I know them? Do I trust them? Do I understand their affiliations? And then some metrics. How many times has this been cited? How many times has this been tweeted? How many times this has been shared on social media, increasing with alt metrics? And so we already kind of make snap judgments when we first look at a paper by looking at these different things. And what we want to focus on is this number. So in today's world, if you come to Elsevier, or really any article for that matter, you'll see the number of citing articles. To see what these 52 articles say about this article of interest would require you to open 52 separate articles, find the in-text citation or in-text mention, read it and understand it. And that is a massive amount of work to do. If there's 52 articles, it's a massive amount of work to do, even if there's 10 articles, let alone hundreds or thousands. And so we are missing very valuable information from the citing literature potentially about this article. Has this study been reproduced? Has it been challenged? Has it been supported? We don't really know that unless we're an expert at the field. And maybe even then we still don't know that. And so what we want to do is turn this from just a number that you glance at, and a superficial number where high is good, into a rich source of information that you can digest, understand, and better contextualize this research that you may need to write upon, you may need to build upon, or you may need to understand for some reason. And so we have a browser extension for Chrome, Firefox, Edge, as well as Safari. And I think this is a very easy way to get Cite, because it will show you Cite basically anywhere you're reading a scientific article online. So it'll show you in Google Scholar, it'll show you in Google, it will show you on Elsevier, it will show you in Springer Nature. Anywhere there's an article, you'll see this information. And so what we show here is the number of citations, similar to what is shown there, broken down by the number of supporting citation statements, mentioning citation statements, and then contrasting citation statements. And what you can do is click this badge, and it will bring you over to Cite. And what you can see on Cite is that we have basically the same metadata as the version of record. So the title, the abstract, the authors, and then a link back to the full text article. And then really the key difference between Cite and any other citation index is that we are showing this citation context. So this excerpt of text, and maybe I'll switch to actually a live version of this. So here's this article. So here is the article that I just showed you. So what you're seeing when you come to Cite is not just a list of citing articles, but you're seeing this actual excerpt of text taken from the full text of the citing article. And so in this case, you're able to see that this paper published in 2012 was cited by another article published in 2014. This citation has been classified as contrasting by a deep learning model, so artificial intelligence, because it says our findings are in contrast to some preliminary findings that suggest that FHP youth have lower or equivalent white matter, et cetera, et cetera. And so in a matter of a click, in really kind of a minute or so, you're able to see this discussion happening amongst experts, backed by data, backed by peer-reviewed studies, where there's a disagreement. And I think that is extremely valuable to help better understand and identify what is reliable and what you might trust or might not trust. And so there's a couple things here that I'll point out. So one, we generally show 3 sentences. So this is what we're calling a citation statement. In this citation statement, you can see this target citation is highlighted in blue. You can also highlight any other citation within that, called a co-citation, to find related work. And this can be very valuable for seeing, okay, here's one study that I'm reading, here's another study that's often co-cited with this. This excerpt of text comes from the full text of this article. It was extracted from the discussion section. And so this contrasting citation statement comes from the discussion section of that citing article. It itself has been cited 21 times, supported twice, and contrasted once. And if you click this, you can then go see how that article has been cited as well. You can search these citation statements for keywords, and it will search them for findings. Here's findings, here's findings. So it's not just looking at only, I want to see supporting or contrasting citation statements. You can look at any word that might be relevant here. You can filter by where these citations appear. So say you want to see how others have cited this work in the methods section. If you filter by methods section, you can then see 2 papers have cited this in the methods section. And that can be quite critical if you're doing an experiment where there might be some differences from paper to paper, and those differences can mean the difference between success of the experiment or not. We then have a deep learning model that classifies these citation statements as, does this provide supporting evidence? Does it provide contrasting evidence, or does it mention it? And this is not perfect. It is exceedingly challenging to classify this text as supporting or contrasting. And so it's important that you're able to read this and understand it. We then show you the confidence that the model has in making this assessment. And if you still believe it to be wrong, or it does look entirely wrong, we allow users to flag the citation statement and say, this doesn't look like contrasting, it looks like this, and here's the reason why. And so this is then reviewed by two humans, experts, members of our team, and either accepted or rejected. In addition to this, you can filter by whether this article is a preprint. You can filter to recent article published in later years. And then you can also identify whether this is a self-citation, an independent citation, or not. And so this is at the core value of what Cite is, showing the citation context. And because citations apply not just to individual articles, but to people, to journals, to institutions, we've built ways of looking at this information at those different levels. And so you can look at any journal to see what is the most supported article there, any university to look at what is the most supported article within this university, and then any funder to see what is the most supported or contrasted article there, similar to people. And I'm not going to go through all of those just in the interest of time. In addition to this, we've also built a tool called a reference check, which allows you to upload a document that you're working on, so an unpublished document, to make sure that your references are sound, right? So has any reference been retracted? Has any reference been contrasted? Maybe you want to address that, or more generally to see how references have been cited by others. And so this is useful to make sure that the foundation of your paper, the references that you're using, are what you think they are. And you'd be surprised that many people continue to cite retracted studies after it's retracted without awareness of this, because they're used to working with PDFs, reading a PDF, and then no longer getting that information. And so this is something that is now integrated into major submission systems around the world that we're introducing as a technical check pre-publications with publishers. And so how do we do this? So in order to show you this citation context, we need access to full text publications. And as librarians acutely know, full text publications are not all open. And so we've partnered with 14 different publishers to date, and we have some very big indexing agreements that we're working on now to gain access to content that is both open, but also content that is behind a paywall. And so here's a list of publishers that we're working with to gain access to that content that's otherwise not open. And so we've come a long way since the first time I met Satya at the Charleston conference, to where we've now analyzed 28 million full text articles and extracted 959 million citation statements from these articles. And these articles range from biomedical literature research, social sciences, to law, to really everything. And I think that's the power of research, the power of libraries, is that this is not just about cancer research, right? It's about policies that influence, meetings, policies that influence how you give a presentation, as well as policies about, raising families and things like this. And so once you have access to this, there is a next challenge. And that next challenge is, how do you extract this information out of it? And so we have developed and worked with some very talented people around the world to build this pipeline that takes these millions of documents and extracts those citation statements from them. And so here's a visual representation of what this looks like. Here is a PDF, and as you all know, PDFs look very different sometimes, right? They can be 2-column, they can be single column, they can have citations with the names, they can have superscript citations, subscripts. There's a lot of different formats. There's a lot of different citation styles. And so we have utilized 11 different machine learning models with 20 to 30 different features each, looking at a PDF, extracting out that information. So we have to identify this in-text citation. This is highlighted in blue. Take that information, match that to the reference string in the reference section, take that information, and then match that against the metadata from Crossref in our case, or metadata from other sources like DataCite as well. And so this is exceedingly challenging. It's also not perfect. And so if you look closely, you can see in some cases we might miss this, right? So here is one where you've missed this. And especially if you go back to earlier PDFs. And some cases, I'm surprised it works at all, where it gets citations from over 100 plus years ago and supporting our contrasting citation statements. Once we have that information out, we then have a deep learning model that looks at that sentence, so looks at this target sentence, what we call it, and then tries to say, does this sentence say that it's supporting the citation or does it provide contrasting evidence to this citation? And so we have developed that by, as experts of the team, looking at these citation statements like this, reading roughly 40,000 of them, where at least 2 different experts have had to read this from all different disciplines, and saying, okay, these authors are indicating that they are providing supporting evidence or contrasting evidence. That information, those 40,000 citation statements, has gone into feeding this deep learning model so that it can learn based on what we have told it to learn, to do this at scale, because we are now close to 1 billion citation statements, which would be impractical or virtually impossible for humans to classify at scale. And so this will continue to grow and will continue to improve. But I think it's important that we have this hybrid system where it's not just AI doing this. Really, it's humans and AI working hand in hand to classify these citation statements. And we have a paper describing this whole process in detail, linked from Cite directly, if you want to read more about it, that is published open access and published only last November. And so it'll give you more details into how we've built Cite, what are the limitations, and what are the precision, the recall scores, all of these things. And so how can this information go beyond just looking at an individual article for students? How can this impact, even our day-to-day lives? And so, as has been mentioned in this call or in this conference a few times, COVID is obviously impacting our lives. How do we know what to trust, right? There is a massive amount of information. There's a lot of disagreement. There's places coming out saying this COVID is linked to mental illness, linked to obesity. We change our entire lives based on this information. Is it strong? And so in many cases, actually, with COVID, there's also been a massive increase in preprints. So articles being published without peer review, which exacerbates the challenges even more, right? Can I rely upon this study that has just came out from this university that says, something quite shocking? And so in this case, I'm highlighting one preprint that received a massive amount of attention. So here's an article looking at COVID and linking it to mental illness and brain disorder. And so this article, or this preprint, was shared in the news, multiple news sites across Twitter, across Facebook, across blogs, 27 different news outlets. And what was found later was that it was not right. It was contrasted by a subsequent study. And so this would be lost unless you're reading virtually any scientific article. And so we want to surface these relevant discussions, these debates that are happening, and make it easy for you to digest this. And the analogy here is quite similar to this website, Rotten Tomatoes, if anyone's familiar with this. Rotten Tomatoes looks at how Netflix shows how movies have been discussed in the media. And we're bringing that same type of functionality to scientific literature. And so here's another example, similar case of a tweet. Again, this comes from a very well-respected doctor in California, talking about that there's no significant difference in viral load between vaccinated and unvaccinated, asymptomatic and symptomatic groups. He shows this. This was massively retweeted, 779 retweets, 200 quote tweets, and over 1,000 likes. Again, this comes from a preprint where it was not peer-reviewed. And so is this something that we can trust, right? This might lead you to not want to get a vaccination if you see that there's no difference. And so what our browser extension also allows you to do is highlight any term or phrase on the internet, whether that's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook, whether that's in a scientific article or on Google. So you can highlight it and then right-click it and then search our citation statements to see what has the literature says about this. And so if you do that and you search this, you'll find thousands of results. But you'll quickly find the very relevant ones. And this citation statement search is something new that we've released, and I think is quite powerful. And really, there's nothing else like it, right? It's searching our entire database so you can see what the literature says about any topic, whether that's COVID, Peppa Pig, social sciences, things like this. And so if you highlight that and search this, the difference in viral load, you'll quickly see that there is a competing study that says there is a difference between these two groups. So it says the SARS-CoV-2 culture of swabs was positive in 68.6% of vaccinated healthcare workers versus 84.9% of unvaccinated healthcare workers. And then they show that it was significant in this test. And so if you look at a different technique, you find a difference. And so this nuance is lost in those tweets, in those news articles. And so Cite is trying to help bring that back so that you can better understand and better utilize answers that are out there. They're just buried amongst this avalanche of citations. And so if you also see that this article itself has been supported by another study. And if you click that, it will show you, again, the citation statements of how it's been supported. And so all that information has been there, but it's just too much for us to digest. It's too much literature to read everything as humans. And so we built this system to help you as a human better discover, better evaluate, and better look at research on anything. And so where are we today? So as mentioned, we have analyzed millions and millions of scientific articles. And so we've extracted 960 million citation statements from 28 million journal articles. Again, this is a massive amount of content, and we have the world's largest collection of citation statements. So much more than any other citation statement tool. And this is a challenge, again, just for the licensing, to get access to it and then to be able to process it. And so we've done 28 million full text articles. Our goal is to analyze every research article there is in the world, and that will take some time. This impacts 47 million different journal articles. So there's 47 million articles that have information on from Cite on them. And our aim, and so we're doing hundreds of thousands of PDFs per day. If we need to, we can scale this up and do even 500,000 PDFs per day processing this. As mentioned, we're working with various publishers to gain access to this, and we have some very big indexing agreements that we'll soon announce that will increase this coverage even more. We're also working with publishers to show this information directly on the version of record. And so here is Archive. Here's a major deep learning model, BioBERT. And if you scroll down, you can see that Cite, amongst other citation tools, is now shown on Archive. And so we're live on millions of articles themselves. And that is part of our aim of becoming the next generation of citations. So not just this small, interesting startup doing something on the side, but really becoming the next generation of citations that's part of the infrastructure so that this information can be better utilized by anyone in the world. Here it is on Wiley, where we're live on hundreds of journals. It's significantly larger, and so it will show you citations that they have traditionally showed, and then it shows the citation statements, and you can see how many are supporting, how many are mentioning, and how many are contrasting. And then you can click that and go quickly read and search and better understand that information. It's also live on the Royal Society, and increasingly will be live more and more places, I think, as others adopt it and as our coverage and the utility becomes apparent. And so here's one more example where it's live on the American Physiological Society. This information is free to add to websites. If you go to cite.ai/badge, you can add it to repositories. So to bring this to a university repository, to other tools like JGate, because we want it to be ubiquitous, right? We want these next generation of citations to exist everywhere because we think it provides valuable information. It's not just us, though, that thinks this. And so there's many researchers that have found this quite useful. Some have called this gold and said this is so cool. They wish they could use this when they were writing their PhD dissertation. Some researchers themselves have even used it on their own papers and discovered things that they themselves didn't know about their own work, so that they've been supported. And this is true of even my PhD study. And I think one powerful use case and one strong difference from traditional citation indices is that it's not just for bibliometrics or for administrators to use. It's really for students and for everyone. And so most of our users are actually students using this to help them write essays, their dissertations, and their research. And so I think it can be useful for a student, it can be useful for a professor, it can be useful for a policymaker, anyone that is looking at scientific literature, which is basically everyone at this point, because we're all now looking at COVID. And so that video took a little bit away from this slide, but we thought we were so clever that we were the first to come up with this idea. No one's ever thought of this. But in fact, Eugene Garfield, who created the first citation index, Web of Science, and who I actually got to speak to about 10 years ago now at this point, described in 1964 in a paper, Can Citation Indexing Be Automated, adding citation markers. And he says these markers would appear in the published citation index along with the usual citation data. And in the case of the paragraph above, he gives a few different citation markers and what they could look like. And so he suggests ones like critique, Mr. X is wrong, data spurious, conclusions wrong, or calamity for mankind, my favorite. And he says the intelligent machine would examine a new document, generate a critical statement such as rather poor paper. And so this is effectively kind of what we are bringing to life. And I would say we're somewhat lucky because the tools, the technology has come such a long way, even in the last 5 years, that we are able to do this. Again, it's not perfect and it will never be, but it is quite good and quite robust. And so we can take this vision that Eugene Garfield had in 1964 and bring it to life. And I think it'll only get better and better as we continue to work on it, continue to work with librarians to better understand it, how it can help them, better understand how it can help their students. I would also say that this is an approach that lawyers have used for well over 100 years. So lawyers have products called Keysight or from Westlaw that called shepherdizing products that allow them to look at, is this law still reliable? And so we have effectively brought this practice that has been done in law for a long time to science. So kind of like shepherdizing for science. So with that, I would say thanks to everyone for listening in. Thanks to everyone virtually as well as in person. It made me feel like I was really, at a conference having to wake up early. So I kind of liked it because I missed traveling, and hopefully one day I will be able to get that bouquet, or at least to see a lot of you in person. So again, please feel free to email us or email informatics if you have any questions. We also offer free trials to universities, so this can be tried entirely without commitment. And we think it will be useful to the student, to the professor, to the administrator at your university. So thanks everyone, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions and hear some feedback as well. Thanks for clapping, I can see you too, so it's nice.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions from the audience here?
A question for the very effective presentation on smart citations. I have a very simple question. Suppose I am a peer reviewer of an original research paper. In what way I can make use of your smart citation?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, and I can give you a demonstration of something I didn't show, but I talked about. So here's an article that was published in November 2020. Let's all pretend that you've just received this article to peer review, so it's unpublished. So what you can do with Cite is take any PDF that you have, so an article that you're peer reviewing, and you can upload it. And we will show you how those references have been cited by others. And so if you come to our reference check, you can take a manuscript that you're reviewing, upload it, and it can be a PDF. It doesn't need to be published. If you take that, what we are doing here is what we do millions of times with published documents. So we're automatically identifying the in-text citations, matching that to the references, and then showing our information. And so here is this article that we just uploaded, this PDF. And what we show you is that we detect 41 references from this. And so we won't detect newspapers or magazines or things like this, but we will detect the scholarly articles. We flagged that 2 references have some editorial concern. And so if you scroll down, here is one reference. This reference was actually retracted in 2013. So this article published in 2020 is citing an article that's been retracted in 2013. And so this might be rare, but this can be quite bad, because if you're citing a fraudulent study or a study that was retracted for some serious reason, and that is a big part of your own argument, that will look bad. And so we will show you, this section where it's been used. So this excerpt comes from that PDF that we just uploaded. And you can see that they're saying, second, life satisfaction can be influenced by objective social context through a more unconscious path with little conscious attention or monitoring. And then they reference Diederik Stoppel and Blanton. And so this researcher had 20+ papers actually retracted. And so this is one way that you can use this, is to look at what have others said about this reference. And so to avoid citing retracted studies, nearly 8 years after it's been retracted, and then to also see, maybe what others have said about this. So here is another reference, and you can see this one has been contrasted. This doesn't mean it's a bad study per se, but maybe these different contrasting citations should be addressed in the paper, and you might want to mention that as a peer reviewer. In addition to that, you can also just simply use cite to better understand these things. And so we have the ability to look at citation statements, and say you are looking at obesity rates in Mumbai, you could search this on cite, and what you'll find is information basically directly from the literature. So here's a paper in 2015 talking about obesity rates in New York City, relevant here, as well as rates of hypertension. And then there's an answer in Mumbai. And so this tool overall can just help you better understand questions that you might have in different things. And so it can be used for a lot of different things, whether this is specifically the reference check or just trying to better understand, what these authors are saying in a paper that you reviewed. Have others said things before it? Do they contrast it? Should they address these things? Thank you.
I will just put one more question and stop with that.
Yeah.
Suppose I refereed a paper. I have a 30% supporting references, supporting citations, 40% contrasting citations, and that rest mentioned, what is it? You mentioned. So what should be my overall judgment on that paper?
Yeah, so this is not something that we say where there's some clear cutoff of this is a ratio that you should say this paper is bad or good, because one contrasting citation might be enough for you to say this is not a good paper, right? It could be clearly we've tried this 3 different ways and we could not confirm those studies, or it could be contrasting, we found a 25% different. And so those both are contrasting citation statements, but one is significantly worse than the other. And so we've tried to avoid any cutoff, any reductionism to a single number to say this is good or bad. And so I think it's important that you don't just look at only the number of supporting or contrasting citation statements, but you really read how has it been cited. And I think maybe this will become more sophisticated over time, but I am very hesitant to say that here's a simple number, this is overall good or bad. And that's really kind of what we're trying to work against with traditional citations, where everyone treats all citations the same, and they say high is good, low is not good, right? They're not all the same. Some are very, different than others, whether that's a citation from the introduction section or the discussion section. And so I would caution, from reducing it down to a single number or ratio.
Also, that was the inference of Eugene Garfield in the 1964 paper also. He was mentioning about how to brand it as very bad or something. You showed a paper, 1964 paper, that in the last paragraph says clearly that, several observations, and finally going to the state that a bad paper, good paper, rejectable, acceptable, and all that is too much. That's what he was telling.
Yeah, I think so. And we've also, so we have done some of this work at journals where we have shown a ratio, right? So we have a cite index, and this is really aimed at being complementary to the impact factor, right? The impact factor is a very strong metric that influences a lot of things, right? It influences university rankings, it influences where you publish. But again, it's not a full story, right? It is just looking at the number of citations, not necessarily the quality of citations. And so we have developed what we call the cite index, which is a ratio of supporting citations over supporting plus contrasting citations. And you can look at any journal and see what that citation index is. And so if you look at journals that have 13 million citations, PNAS, you can see here is 0.9 in the last 2. So it's quite high in terms of the number of supporting citations, whereas if you look at another one, this one's significantly lower. And that can be for a variety of different reasons. And again, I would caution that we shouldn't, reduce this down to like this journal's bad because it has a low cite index. It's really just a complementary way of looking at this. And it also varies from discipline to discipline. So yeah, thanks for that question. Anything else?
You mentioned about disinformation regarding COVID. The social network analysis metrics like centrality index, etc. If someone has cited, let us say, a retracted paper, what's the connection between that, and then his citations or her citations?
Yeah, so we haven't done much of this research ourselves just because we're a very small team and what we're doing already is very challenging. And so we make our citations available via API for bibliometrics researchers to do more sophisticated analyses looking at this. And so I think that is one thing that we could start to look at and look more closely at. I'm pulling up one thing that it's also interesting though that I can share. So hopefully you can see my screen again. We have developed this bot on Twitter that we call the Site Reference Checkbot. And what that bot does is looks for scientific papers that cite retracted papers after they've been retracted. And so here's one from 3 hours ago. So it's running all the time that shows a paper from Pharmaceutics citing a retracted paper after the retraction. Here's one at 4 hours later. We've also developed this information to be integrated into reference managers like Zotero so that before you cite an article, you can see how has it been cited by others, has it been retracted? And so I think, we've developed ways of kind of surfacing it and making it easy to see. But I do think there could be really interesting analyses done where you look at this at scale and more systematically and to say, okay, if you cite a contrasted study or you cite a retracted study, what is the impact on that? You could also relate it to the last talk. What about papers that make their data availability? So have a data availability statement. Does that lead to more supporting citation statements because people are able to support it? Does it lead to more contrasting citation statements? Does it have any effect? And so there's a massive amount of research that can be done based on our data. And we're starting to make that available and it's starting to be cited in different studies. We're just quite young as a company and as a data source. And so it's not as rich a literature as, say, bibliometrics that have been built on Web of Science. But that's a really good question. Would be really interesting to look more closely at.
Thank you, Josh. Any question from the online audience? No questions. So there have been no questions from the online.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh, for excellent presentation. Now, in the Zotero citation connector, there is a concept that total distinct citing publications, and it is always actually less than the total smart citations. So could you please explain it? What is that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Thank you. And I'm glad that you're using the Zotero connector because I think that's a great way of using it. And so I've just talked about us, analyzing 28 million articles and extracting almost 1 billion citation statements. That's a lot, right? But it's not everything. And so what do we do when we don't have access to an article? So here's, a case where there's one paper citing this. It's been cited 4 different times. And so we capture citation statements. And so one paper can cite a paper multiple times. It's important for us to capture those because it can say, it can be supporting it here and just mentioning it here. What about though, when we don't have an article? And so when we don't have this, we show a traditional citation. And so these traditional citations, we have all of them from, say Elsevier or places where we don't have all of the full text. And so the difference is that in some cases, we will not have the article. And so we'll just show a citation and not a citation statement. The other difference is this is a citation, one paper. These are citation statements. So there's 3 citation statements from it. And so those numbers can be different. And that can be a bit confusing because it's something new, but it's really important to capture this information because here's a contrasting citation statement and here's a mentioning one. And so this one, would be 3 from that. And yeah, that's not always directly apparent. So it's a really good question. And I'll just show you the audience what the Zotero connector looks like. So here is Zotero, the reference manager, and you can see within that our information. And so this is free to download and add to Zotero. And you can see, okay, most of these don't have contrasting citation statements, but maybe this one does. I want to look at that. And so this is a strong way to utilize Cite while you're writing, as well as while you're reading and collecting citations. Thank you for that question. I see another few questions online that I can just answer if we still have time. What is the journal coverage from India on Cite? And so the journal coverage, I would say, is quite good. It's not perfect, though, and it could probably be better. And so if there's journals that you think we are missing, that we don't cover, please email us, and I will work on getting that coverage. Or if there's major open sources, again, we would like to work with that. And so we have partners in Turkey where we didn't have good coverage on Turkey, but we worked with them, and now we've analyzed, every Turkish article. We are primarily English articles displayed, but we do process non-English articles as well. And so here's, some French ones. You can scroll down. Here's Portuguese, and some what looks to be Cyrillic or Greek characters here as well. And so we would love to work with Indian journals and to index them and analyze them. And we have on the homepage, an easy way for publishers to get in contact with us and to look at our indexing agreement. The good thing is for publishers is that we also drive them traffic. So we give them, there's more links to that because people are discovering more with Cite, not less. Another question that I'll answer real quick, please explain the relation between altmetric indicators and Cite indicators. So this is a good question. Altmetric is looking at social media. So it's looking at how has an article been discussed on Twitter, on Facebook, in the news. We're not looking at any of that. We're only looking at how has an article been cited, discussed by other research articles. And so I think that's a very important distinction because if you say you support a paper on Twitter, that is very different than if you say you support a paper with evidence in a peer-reviewed study. And so there's two different conversations. One conversation is happening in the social media realm, and then our conversation Cite is happening specific to the research literature. It's really good.
Is there any relation between Cite and this open citation corpus?
Yeah, so we utilize those open citations. So what I just showed here, so all these citation statements, it come from the full text where we have access. Where we don't have access, we show these traditional citations. These come from open citations. And so we have all of Elsevier's references because they've made them open about a year ago. And so that's been hugely important for us because it gives us this very comprehensive view where we are quite similar to other citation tools in terms of overall citation coverage. But then we have, nearly 1 billion citation statements and they have none, right? And it will take them a while to get because you have to build these licensing relationships, you have to process these, et cetera, et cetera. And so we utilize open citations, and it's been really helpful to make sure we show when we don't have a citation statement, we can at least show the citing article, which is, kind of the basal line for us. There's another question. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll take up the questions later on. Any questions from the audience can be addressed to us, and we will pass it on to Dr. Josh Nicholson during the course of time. Now we come to the final session of this curtain raiser program, the presidential address. May I request Professor Rajshekharan Pillai to deliver the presidential address. Professor Pillai.
Good evening, everybody. Wish you all a happy and prosperous new year. First of all, let me congratulate Informatics and the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University for arranging a curtain raiser of the Library Technology Conclave 2022, which is to be hosted by the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University and jointly conducted by the Informatics and the university and other institutions in the future. Professor DEBABRATA Das and Dr. Josh Nicholson gave the curtain raiser lectures, which are very relevant to the theme. Professor Shalini Ars, who is the chair of this Library Technology Conclave 2022, she articulated very clearly what is expected out of the Library Technology Conclave 2022. Mr. Satyanarayana, while highlighting the history of the informatics, the trials and tribulations of that organization, and he mentioned how informatics has been collaborating with universities and higher education institutions in the country for making the libraries most effective and functional to the core. And we are extremely glad, as Vice Chancellor of the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, and as a person who has been interacting with Mr. Satyanarayana and Professor Shalini Ars for the last several years in various other capacities, we consider it a great privilege and honor to have all of you coming to the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University for this event, of course, even otherwise. Dr. Vaidante, our university librarian, he is the organizing secretary of this event. We have also the IT department of the Somaiya Vidya Vihar institution, Somaiya Vidya Vihar University. Mr. Mahavir, who is a joint coordinating secretary of this particular event. I don't want to make a speech about the technologies in library science. Of course, when I was listening to both of them, I was just thinking about my starting the PhD research in 1969 in experimental sciences in organic chemistry. And during those period, of course, I used to read Eugene Garfield. He was also an organic chemist. Eugene Garfield was an organic chemist. So in his 1959, he mentioned, he brought the Science Citation Index. And in that Science Citation Index introducing paper, he mentioned that, so I just quote him, this will be a spur to many scientific discoveries in the service of mankind. That was the quotation in the 1959 paper by Eugene Garfield. Today we have seen how much technologies, how much different types of technology, whether it be big data, blockchain, several large technologies are getting introduced in the library movement, library activities in all spheres. The overall purpose of a library, when we see, is to provide information to everybody, provide information to everybody. That is the overall purpose of a library, equally without any difficulty. I'm sure that the technological interventions have eased our lives in several cases. We have seen in two years how much technology has changed, has impacted each and every one of us, whether it be in the universities, whether it be in the schools, whether it be in our own families, how much technologies have impacted. And libraries have been welcoming technology in a very significant way all these years. I am very confident that the Library Technology Conclave, probably we have to think about even the physical, the concept of physical libraries. All these things we can have a lot of discussions, but we can at the very same time we have to think that all these things will coexist. All these things will coexist because artificial intelligence, human intelligence, individual interventions, personal interventions, machines, all these things will coexist in the world. That's what we are seeing. When the COVID-19 came, we had I am an experimental scientist, I mentioned. We had a conference, what will happen to
experimental science, what will happen to our research laboratories and all that. We invited some presidents of the science academies and a few heads of national institutions. Dr. Kasturi Rangan chaired that particular meeting. So we were all worrying. That was in the beginning. Actually, in March, we all closed, around March 19 or so, we closed, but it was in around June we conducted this. We were all very worried what will happen. But when after several months, we saw that 2020 was the year of science. 2020 was the year of science. Maximum collaboration in the history of mankind. Maximum collaboration. Maximum collaboration in the history of mankind happened in 2020 through technologies. People who do not know each other, institutions which are not interacting, they have all come together to work for problems. Irrespective of age and seniority, research scholars interacted with very senior professors from all over the researchers from all over the world. So the technology has really created impact. So similarly, in the library technology conclave, I am sure that we will discuss some of these paradigm shifts which are happening in the library movement. And the research data management is, quality research data management is one of the areas which we are discussing, and it is also very important. When we talk about research management, we also have to think about the ground realities of research. We are all talking about the publications, research publications in referred journals, citations, impact factor, all these things, H-index, how citations can lead to the can find out the impact of a researcher and all that. Then when we apply the next derivation as the context of citation, probably we have to think about even the citation H-index in all these things in a very different way when we analyze these citations further. And this has been happening. This has been happening not in a very big technological way, but in addition to what we see in the research data, there are also a lot of things untoward happening in research. There are a large number of predatory journals, large number of publications, probably publications which should not have come out. There are publications coming which should not have come out. There is because of certain the compulsions and all that, lot of predatory journals, and then even conferences where such papers are coming. This is also a great threat for research data. We have to just look at the quality of the research papers. Quality in every sense, authenticity and quality of the research papers. And then even we have to think of, we have to inform the scientists. As librarians, we have the responsibility to inform the scientists about the about such pitfalls also. How we can really find out what is true, what is untrue, and how we can guide them in identifying the proper path for research. These are all very, very important things which are happening in research. In open sciences, just as open education, open science is a big subject now. We have also seen the face of publications, face of research publications change. For example, face of collaborations change, even collaborations change. Now we can publish even without identifying a journal, without identifying a particular journal. 3 or 4 authors can come together and publish, put it in the open domain, and then it can be subjected to open reviewing, open refereeing. And this open refereeing can be followed by the journals, and these journals can, based on this open refereeing and a critical analysis of the open refereeing, the journals can, one particular journal can invite those others to publish that paper in a journal. These are all things happening. Good things are happening in publishing. Good things are happening in research collaboration. And in adversities, we do maximum. And therefore, we even, of course, we will be definitely hoping to do this, the library technology conclave in the Somaiya Vidya Vihar University campus in the physical mode. Now there are some threats, but we are confident, we are optimistic that things will be all right by March. Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, as my colleague Dr. Vaidante mentioned, it is a 70-year-old institution, 70-year-old. They have 70-year-old history in education, right from schools to PhD institutions, research labs, and corporate research labs. We have 34 institutions, including a self-financed university, several autonomous colleges, engineering college, medical college, ITI, Polytechnic, and it is Somaiya Vidya Vihar University and the Somaiya Vidya Vihar institutions, libraries, which are collaborating with the informatics for this particular event. We consider it a great opportunity, and I welcome you all to our very serene and beautiful campus in the heart of the Mumbai city, just 7-8 kilometers from the international airport. I look forward to seeing you all there. Let this conference be a great success. I'm confident that with the type of inputs from Professor Das, Dr. Nicholson, and several other people Dr. Shalini has identified for our speakers and workshop coordinators, this will be a great success, and we will definitely make some global contributions to library technology as a result of this conclave. Let me wish you all the very best in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Pillai, for your concluding remarks. I am confident the audience will join us for the actual event during the conclave. We hope you will plan your joining for the conclave during March 3rd to March 5th. May I now request Samita S. to deliver the vote of thanks. Samita.
Good evening, everyone. I take this opportunity to wish all of you and your family members a very happy new year. Before concluding the curtain raiser event for LTC 2022, I, on behalf of Informatics as well as Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, I would like to thank a few people who made this event possible and made this event, this success that it is today in the shadow of the ongoing pandemic and the shadow of the ongoing third wave. First and foremost, I would like to thank the chair of today's program, Professor Rajashekaran Pillai. Professor Rajashekaran, you delivered the valedictory address for LTC 2021. And during that time, you graciously invited Informatics to host LTC 2022 in your university campus. We are very thankful to you for this opportunity of collaboration. And we are indeed looking forward to attend the workshop and the conclave at the Mumbai campus. You summarized the good and the bad which is happening today in research data management. So this has sort of set the tone for us for the upcoming lectures, and I'm sure it's going to be very interesting with the set of wonderful speakers that Dr. Shalini Aras has selected. I would like to thank our chief guest today, Professor DEBABRATA Das, Director IIITB. It was indeed a very enlightening lecture, sir. So as described by you, research data management is really the need of the hour today. Finding the right data sets, tools, simulation codes for research by researchers, it's like, today become a problem akin to finding a needle in a haystack. So we need to evolve mechanisms to organize, store, share, and preserve research data. You propose that we need to have a quick rationalized retrieval of data collected by research, as well as the code simulation tools, which will result in quicker research data output and help the researchers produce research which is manageable, which is reusable, which is shareable and reproducible. We hope that the cutting edge technologies of today will, make this vision of yours possible. I would also like to thank Dr. Josh Nicholson for introducing CITE to our audience. CITE transforms the citing literature of a scholarly article from a mere number to a true marker of the quality of the article, providing researchers with valuable data on reproducibility and the reliability of the scholarly article. Cite.ai's citation statement search, it seems like a powerful tool helping us distinguish science from pseudoscience probably. So we at Informatics are really looking forward to the introduction of this next generation citation model, Cite.ai, to our Indian researchers, students, policymakers, and every other person who is using scientific literature. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our program chair of the conclave, Dr. Shalini Aras, founder, chairperson, Myra School of Business, Mysuru, for designing the structure of the program and bringing together this wonderful set of expert speakers from all around the world. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank the organizing secretary of the conclave, Professor Vaidande, for taking care of all the arrangements and organization made for this event and also for the main event in Mumbai. Thank you very much, sir. I thank the audience both here as well as who have joined us online for their enthusiastic participation. I thank the IT team of Somaya Vidya Vihar, Mr. Mahavir, Mr. Milind Khedekar, Mr. Raghavendra, and Mr. Amay for managing the digital delivery of the content. I also thank the staff of Fortune Park JP Celestial Hotel for the arrangements they have made despite the evolving pandemic situation. I thank RK and team for setting up the digital screen, audio, video, photography, and most importantly, connecting two groups, the physical in the conference hall, the virtual online, integrating the two spaces for effective interaction. Last but not the least, I would like to convey my heartfelt thanks to Mrs. Nagamma, Mrs. Sujata, Mr. Prasad, Mr. Soji Matthew, Mr. Srinath Puranik, Mr. N.V. Satyanarayana, Mr. Sanjay Grover, and Mr. Devendra Thakur. They have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event possible. Please pardon me if I have forgotten to acknowledge some people. We are really grateful to all of them for making this event possible. I also invite all of you online and present at the premises to participate at the main event at Somaya Vidya Vihar University, Mumbai, to be held between March 3rd and 5th. Please register and please enroll yourself. And finally, last but not the least, please take care, mask up, get your vaccinations, booster doses, stay safe, and wishing all of you a very healthy, happy, peaceful, glorious New Year. Thank you, everyone.